Okay, I think you're gonna like this one because we have a little test for you. What's shaking bacon? I'm Joni Simon. Welcome to my studio. This is where I do food photography, and the goal here is to improve your food photography skills so you can feel confident behind the camera. And today we are continuing on in our series from the complete guide to macro and close-up photography as a part of the Bite Shot book club. So this is the third installment. If you missed the first 2 weeks, you can feel free to go watch those. I've got them linked down below. But this week we are jumping into page 210. We're going to have a little fun today, and we're also going to talk a little bit about lighting. Be sure to stay until the end, though, because I am launching a Quickfire photo challenge, and you don't want to miss that. And so on page 210, it's all about abstract subjects. And abstract subjects, this is a fun area to play with. I've already seen some of you over on Instagram playing with this. The idea that we're getting so close up to that subject that we no longer see the entire subject, but we're really honing in on a particular texture or the way the light is playing with a particular surface or a design or some sort of pattern that's in that subject. It almost takes on sort of this like fine art sort of feel, right? Because it's no longer about the subject, it's much more about the pattern and the visual aesthetic of what's being created in the frame. And there are some great examples here in the book, like the detailed close-up of a sponge where you're looking at the photo and you're like, what is that? And then when you're told it's a sponge, you're like, oh, that's totally a sponge. Close-up of sandpaper, close-up of graffiti. Well, I wanted to take this and put a food spin on it. So you can see, for example, here, we've got the tomato, right? It's pretty obvious still that it's a tomato, I think. Like, I think you would look at this and go, oh, that's a tomato. But it's like a super close up, and it's bringing attention to parts of the tomato that we're not usually focused on, right? Like those little bubbles inside the liquid of the tomato and just like all the curvature. And I mean, that's a sexy tomato, let's be honest. But if you haven't shot this close up to a subject before, there are definitely some things that can help you out in making this a little bit easier. So I'm going to walk you through a couple different scenarios. So the first thing you're going to have to figure out is, what are you actually shooting? And there are plenty of things just laying around in your pantry, in the fridge, in the cabinets. There's all sorts of things, as you can see examples in the book, as well as examples I'm going to show you here today, that you don't have to get fancy with this, which is why it's a whole lot of fun, because we can really focus on the photography as opposed to the styling. But one of the things that really helps to have in a subject when you're shooting this close up and you're going for more of that abstract photography is something that has a lot of texture to it, that has a lot of different textures to it, so that we get some visual interest. So for example, like these pretzels. Now this is again not a super close up, it's very easily identified that these are pretzels, but they are a great macro subject because they have a variety of different textures going on, right? Like we've got that smooth surface that does a beautiful job reflecting those highlights back up, and then it also has the salt granules, and there's just a lot of different textures going on here. So something that's otherwise could be a boring sort of image becomes very exciting and interesting. Same goes for this subject here, which, do you know what this is? Any guesses? It's a watermelon radish. So for any of you who guessed that, congrats. But I knew kind of going into this, again, this would be a great subject for that close-up to get some interesting texture, because when you slice into the radish, you get all that liquid, sort of the water comes out of it, and so you get that shine popping up off of that texture. But then you also have, kind of this raggedy, craggy, organic sort of feel inside there as well. And so those kind of subjects can really lend beautifully to this abstract macro photography. But of course, in order to show off that texture, we need lighting that helps us do that. And to me, the easiest, most predictable way to do that is to utilize side lighting. And we've talked about side lighting here on this channel before, but the idea being that we want to create a lighting scenario where the light is raking across the surface of that subject. The idea that it's skimming it, that it's bouncing off of those little spots where it can grab highlights, and then it can also fall into the grooves and create those shadows and the little valleys, right? That we've got the peaks and the valleys, and that the light is just skimming across, and that's where we create that beautiful contrast and really extract the texture. So if we look at this example, do you know what this is? This one's a little weird. Admittedly, it's like, oh, I don't know if this is a good photo or a bad photo. I mean, it's making you feel something, right? So that makes it an effective photo. But this is actually a pickle, and so pickle lovers, this one's for you. But I positioned the light in such a way that it was kind of off to the side. You can see the setup here, but I was very intentional to move the light into a spot so that it would hit those ridges, those grooves, because the way that the pickle was cut, you know, it's got those ridges in it, and so it's catching those ridges because the position off the light off to the side. I also made sure to tilt the light up just slightly, so the bottom part of where the light is coming out is just skimming across that surface, but it's still enabling those bright pops of light hitting on those areas where the seeds are and that the direction of the pickle is, so that we get those really nice specular highlights. And in a very similar fashion, the same sort of thought process went into photographing this chocolate, these swirls of the chocolate frosting, that I knew that I wanted the light to hit certain areas of it so that we got those bright pops, again, that intensity, that feeling that this feels alive and energetic, but that then in the grooves where it's, you know, those swirls, that we get those darker shadows, creating that contrast, showing off that texture, and getting those salivary glands kicked into high gear in this case. But also along with that, it's not just the position of the light, it's also the position of your subject relative to that light, so that it can pick up all those bright pops of light, especially when we're looking at subject like citrus, for example. So I've got the orange here, that what I did was I cut off the very bottom of that orange so that the orange would lay flat to the surface. That not only helped me just in terms of getting a really nice focus across the entire focal plane of that subject, but then also it just helped to ensure that the light was hitting in such a way that I could then get those really nice juicy specular highlights going on. So when you're sitting down, and if you've not played with this before, or if you have played with this before and you're just going to have a good afternoon of it experimenting with close-up photography, is, you know, just take a slice of orange and then take your light and just slightly reposition things, move things around, and just see how slight changes in the movement can really change the way that those highlights read, that the shadows read, the way that the light behaves and interacts with that subject. Now, another thing that can really level up your close-up macro photography is to play with shaping the light, using different sizes of lights, because depending on your subject, it might kind of be interesting but a little monotonous and boring, and that some different lighting can really change things up. And so, for example, here we have, well, do you know what this is? You probably know what this is, right? This is some red chard. And so we've got this shot of the red chard, and that's a pretty cool shot, right? Like, I really love the textures going on here. Like, it looks a little wild and a little alien, which I'm digging. But watch what happens when I change the lighting, because this first shot, I shot it with the flash position behind a big roll of diffusion paper, which I'll be getting into in a video in a couple weeks, so stay tuned for that. But watch what happens when I go from that really large, soft, beautiful light source, then down to a small 7-inch reflector with a 60-degree grid. I believe it was 60 degrees. All of a sudden, oh, that adds some intensity, it adds some interest. Those shadows, obviously it really deepens those shadows because we have really reduced the size of that light. But to me, it's just added a totally different vibe to this shot that tells a very different story. And so just something to consider when you're shooting these things. If you're looking at a shot and you're like, okay, this is cool, but maybe a little boring, it might be an opportunity to change up your lighting. And then one more thing that I recommend that can really help you in macro photography, make things a lot easier to deal with, is to have a remote trigger that you can fire your camera without having to actually physically press the shutter button. Because, for example, in situations like this salt shot, right? We're shooting salt super close up, and I was very intentional to create sort of like these like grooves and the peaks and valleys in the surface of the salt. But that meant we were like really focusing on very specific granules pills of salt, which is like crazy, right? But we're super close up to that subject, which if we go back to last week's lesson, we remember what happens to our depth of field. In this scenario, we end up with those very narrow depths of field. And so in that situation, then any sort of slight bump or move or change of the camera can then alter the positioning of our focus. And so my suggestion is you get your focus locked in and then you use a remote trigger to fire the shot so that you're not shifting the camera at all, shifting that focal plane. It's gonna make life a lot easier. And two, if you're shooting in continuous lighting and you're shooting at those wider depths of field and you're dealing with higher F numbers, you're likely going to be shooting with slower shutter speeds. And what do we know about shooting continuous light with slow shutter speeds is, again, any sort of bump or bounce to the camera is going to effectively give us some blur. So I shoot with a wired trigger just because I don't trust wireless to save my life. And so I've got the particular one that I use. It's specific to the pins on my camera, but you can find out what one goes with your specific camera, but it is definitely something that makes life a lot easier and will help make sure your macro shots look sharp and fabulous. So now that we all have this awesome macro photography knowledge, it's time to put your skills to the test. So I'm officially issuing a Quickfire photo challenge to you. So what I want is I want you to go out and shoot some macro photography. Now, I have to assume that over the course of the last couple weeks, you've been doing this already. But what I specifically want is that more really close up, kind of abstract feel like we talked about in the book today. Now it can be horizontal, vertical, it doesn't matter as long as it's a JPEG image, and you can submit as many as you want. Submit them via the link below, and they are due, this is why it's a Quickfire, is they are due by Tuesday, February 4th at 8 a.m. Pacific time. And I know you're like, oh my gosh, that's like just a couple days, Joni. I know, but part of the reason is I think it's good to have time restraints on things because it sort of shuts down like the over-analyzing that you do sometimes. Like it just, you got to execute, right? And two, you don't have to go out and buy any sort of like special ingredients or special things. Like you can use things that are just sitting around your house already. And so then all those submissions, myself and one of your favorite guest judges, Lauren Karras from That Sage, she and I are going to go through all the submissions, select our favorites, and then we are going to share them live here on this channel next week, 8 a.m. Pacific time, here on the Bite Shot. We're going to share out all those favorites and we're going to talk about them and what they did well and what we love about it and put your beautiful work on display. So if you want a part of that, all the details are down in the description box below. I'll also keep you updated via my email list, which if you are not on that, I've got that also down in the description box below. But I think that's it for now. So with that, I hope you have a fantastic day. I hope you stay out of trouble. Please promise me, stay out of trouble, right? And I'll see you soon, okay? Bye.